Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Sergeant Kirstan Wallace. We warmly welcome the family of Private Thomas Percy Laintol, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony around Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Please sit if you wish to do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we pay tribute to Private Thomas Percy Laintol, who died on active service during the Second World War on the 10th of August 1943. Thomas Percy Laintol was born on the 22nd of January 1912 to James and Catherine Laintol in Kapunda in South Australia's Barossa Valley region. Catherine Laintol died of double pneumonia at the age of 42 when Thomas was only 5 years old, leaving behind 7 children to mourn her. In 1923, the family was again struck down with tragedy when Thomas's older brother Joseph drowned in a nearby creek. 4 other boys were with him, but none could swim, and the drowning boy failed to see a stick that they had held out to him. Laintol worked in the timber industry as a timber stacker and was mobilised into the militia on the 3rd of March 1941. Following his call-up, he enlisted at Kensington in Adelaide and commenced his service at Woodside Camp in South Australia in October 1941. There he was posted to the 13th Field Regiment and commenced training. In June 1942, he was posted to Headquarters New Guinea Force and in July was hospitalised with dengue fever. He returned to his unit in January 1943 and was transferred from the militia to the 2nd Australian Imperial Force after voluntary enlistment in the AIF. He continued to serve in the Headquarters Unit of New Guinea Force in Port Moresby. On the 19th of February 1943, Laintol was again hospitalised with dengue fever, returning to his unit about a week later. On the 19th of In May, he was again struck with illness, this time with amoebiasis, an infection that causes dysentery. He was treated at the 2nd Casualty Clearing Station for 2 months before being evacuated from Port Moresby. After arriving in Townsville in late July, he was transferred to the 105th Australian General Hospital in Adelaide, where he died of his illness on the 10th of August 1943, only a few days after his arrival. He was 31 years old. Laintol was given a military funeral and was buried in a special war cemetery plot at the Centennial Park Cemetery in Adelaide. Among the many notices by family and friends that appeared in the Adelaide Advertiser was the following: "He suffered and died that we might live in peace." His name is listed here on the Roll of Honour on my left, among some 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Thomas Percy Laintol, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and good evening.